You know, of all the infinite possibilities that exist, it's crazy to think that we try so hard to find our place or things so early in life. We feel that we have to have things figured out by 20, or 30 if you're living that party life. But when you think about how 20 is just a fraction of your life, with all the endless possibilities, why do we try to pin ourselves down so young?
I mean, we've all done it, whether it's a scene, culture, friends, partner, career, politics, you name it. People pick the road and they assume that that's going to be their path for life. But what happens when we get into those mid years? Those friendships, those partnerships, that career tends to feel like a bumpy road, uncomfortable, and you're not quite sure of the destination anymore. Do you stay on that road because, I mean, you've been on it for so long, you kind of know where it's going, or do you change course? Do you find a new road because you want something different? Because it just seems like the road you're on is not really leading you anywhere. But at the same time, it's comfortable and you know it. And I really can't speak for you. You obviously do what you're gonna do. But for me, that's pretty much what I did. I veered off my normal road. And, the results were, well, we'll get into the results.
I've been a tattoo artist for over 20 years. You know what that does to someone? I mean, that became my personality. That's my ego, man. So the fact that, like, I got to do a job that I've been wanting to do since I was 6 years old. I mean, I've been wanting to draw. I've been drawing since I was 6 years old. So if I go back to myself back then, that, hey, little Wesley, you're going to be a tattoo. You're going to need to do artwork as a living for 2 decades and make really good money at it, I would be stoked. That's all I've ever wanted. And on top of that, I get to maintain a semblance of immaturity. You don't have to grow up too much. I get to maintain the life I lived, punk rock music and partying and all that. So I don't really party anymore, I'm old. But why did I get burnt out? The problem that people don't realize is sometimes your passion gets buried in work. Sometimes the creativity just becomes a job. Even though you're doing something creative and doing something artistic that you thought you would love forever, at some point when it's your career, it's just another job. And you're beholden to that job. You rely on that job to pay your bills and to just live. And sometimes that just starts to eat at the passion. It starts to eat at the things that you loved about being creative, and you start to resent it. And I didn't want to resent anymore. I wanted to maintain my love for creativity. I want to maintain my love for the craft of tattooing and for being an artist. And the only way I could see that ever really happening is if I didn't treat tattooing as a job anymore, as like my main source of livelihood. So I decided to take another path and just make tattooing kind of a side gig, something I could just enjoy. And hopefully I find another job that I enjoy just as much as tattooing, but that is different. All I know is I never worked with the guy that created that term, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. Because, man, that could be bullshit.
I was getting burnt out, and I needed something new. And honestly, I have the attention span of a dog, so the fact that I lasted this long with tattooing blows my mind. Luckily, I had other skills and ambitions and passions in life, and rather than stay on this bumpy ass road that was leading me to resent tattooing, I decided to take that off ramp and find a new path for myself and kind of keep the tattooing as a alternate route for certain things. I went from that pirate lifestyle of getting up at 11 a.m., eating whatever I wanted to eat, talking shit with my coworkers, wearing what I wanted to wear, going to bed at 4 o'clock in the morning because I was painting or whatever, traveling the country, going to tattoo conventions and guest spots, and changing shops more than I changed socks, to the corporate life, you know, 9 to 5, getting up early, going to bed early, time sheets, an actual lunch break at a specific time, benefits, the regular person job, I guess. And the crazy thing is, I love it. It wasn't just a career change, it was a whole mental reset. I thought that my career as a tattooer was this freeing thing. And for the most part, it was. It was a little too freeing. I didn't really have any particular responsibilities. And even when I got older, I had bills to pay and rent and all that stuff. The mentality of being a tattooer, especially since I've been doing it right out of high school, just kind of kept me in this immature type state, I guess. I don't know. While still paying my bills, of course. I realized this was my fantasy of adulthood, seen through the eyes of a teenager. And the fantasy started to wear off. It became too real, and my responsibilities and age started to come into focus. And I'm not saying there can't be mature tattoo artists, there's tons of them, and I know them. But for me personally, I just associated my tattoo career with my youth, with me being young and having that young mentality. And that's on me, that's not anybody else. That's not like, you know, it's not the best way to look at it. But when I was locked into that idea, the only way for me to like really grow and progress and take care of myself was to completely switch gears, switch careers, and switch lifestyles, really. The way my new career path reshaped my mentality or gave me the mental reset was routine. Now, routine can happen regardless if you have a new career or not. But for some reason, the structure of working for a corporation kind of gave me I kind of needed a routine. Now, remember, I have the attention span of a dog. So this is tricky. I now had to get up early, dress nicer, get to work, check my schedule, check my emails, check my calendar on a daily basis every morning. I had to organize my work better, where it was easily accessible for not just me, but for my coworkers as well. Now, some of this is easy because it mirrored what I did tattooing, answering emails, scheduling things, stuff like that. But other things were so far removed from what I was used to that it took a minute for me to adapt. But adapting to these things gave me a whole new outlook. If I can change my whole routine for work, why couldn't I change my whole routine for my life in general? So a new process began. See, the idea of having a corporate job changed the entire way I saw myself. Corporate jobs to me have always been a grown-ups thing, dress nice, have nice cars, that kind of thing. So the corporate world was a little bougie to me. And it still can be, honestly. But what I learned was, now that I'm in this upper echelon of work, I guess, that I saw, not that it is, it's actually just like any other job, really. But getting into it, working in this field, which is getting completely the opposite of tattooing, I saw myself differently. And it made me want to change things and change habits I'd built up being a tattooer for all these years that were bad habits. Not because of tattooing, just because of my immaturity. Okay, tattooing did not make me immature. I was immature because of the tattooer. Does that make sense? Maybe not. Well, this all just maybe a placebo effect. I don't know. But whatever it was, my whole mentality changed. With this new schedule of, getting up early and eating better, all this stuff, I had more energy. I was more positive. I felt like I had more cognitive reasoning and stuff like that. Again, it could be a placebo thing. I could have always had this. I just needed to focus it. But I think that getting more sleep and all this stuff, which has been proven, by the way, but getting more sleep and changing these habits that I had to more positive habits kind of helped just me. I'm losing weight, I'm exercising more, I'm reading more, I'm learning more. It's the whole thing is just crazy how just changing a career changed my whole mindset. Again, this is specific to me. It might work for you. It might work for you. Who knows? Give it a shot. If you're burnt out, give it a shot. I'm saying. As I said, all this isn't necessarily related to going from a tattoo artist to the corporate life. It could work just easily the other way around. If some dude was a corporate guy for 20 years and decided he needed a more creative job and he got into tattooing, he could have the exact same results I'm having now. It's not about that. I think it's just a life change, a new direction, the taking that different path, after so long of been doing the same thing. Hell, it could be the midlife crisis thing. Who knows? I am in the midlifes, mid numbers. 42. That's mid. I would hope that with the science of marketing, that 60, 80 might be the mid. That's your midlife crisis. Live to 120, 140. Who would want that? But as we stand now, I'm in my mids. This is midlife. That was the crisis. Crisis averted. In the end, I think all the midlife crisis is just realizing all the possibilities there are in the universe. And you think about the path that you chose to get to where you are. And a midlife crisis may be just realizing that you are turning 40 or 50 or whatever. A midlife crisis could be realizing that you didn't accomplish what you wanted to accomplish. Midlife crisis could be realizing you're alone or whatever. Midlife crises aren't necessarily a crisis all the way around. It could, again, just be simply, I'm old. That's your crisis. Or the crisis could be, I am 40 and I'm miserable. That's not me, but people have the midlife crisis. The point is, the midlife crisis gets you thinking about all the possibilities out there. And when you're burnt out and you're just tired of what you've been doing, the midlife crisis kind of helps you. I say helps you, it might, maybe not, but it helps you kind of see and think, am I really doing what makes me happy? Am I really contributing to the advancement of my own life? Those weird esoteric questions, the epiphanies. You have the epiphanies. But there could be people that are, 40 years into life and they nailed it, they love their life. Everything's grand, and that's awesome. I'm stoked for you, really. For some of us, life is just different. In the end, with all the possibilities in the world, it's never too late to try something new. And if you find yourself in your 40s and you're doing great, cool, you're rocking it. But if you're feeling bummed, burnt out, just tired, take that off ramp. It's never too late to try something new. And it may not change your entire life, but it might do something for you that makes everything bearable, that makes everything seem like there's a purpose, Keep in mind, though, with this change, you could change everything. I find myself more motivated now more than ever to pick up the things that I put aside for so long. Now I got to figure out how to balance my responsibilities with all the things that I want to pick up again. How am I going to do that?